There are a lot of cucumbers that are around and about. And so we as a group decided that I would talk a little bit about cucumbers. So some interesting facts. Cucumbers actually originated in India. And a lot of times we hear the expression cool as a cucumber. And where that expression came from actually is that the inside of the cucumber is actually 20 degrees cooler than the outside of the cucumber. Years ago, when people had fevers, they would take cucumbers and cut them open and lay them all over on the body to help with trying to control a fever. Cucumbers contain about 96% water, so we have to always make sure that we water our plants well. And actually, in 1876, the Heinz Company actually started processing and making pickles. And from that date forward, we have cucumbers not only as fresh, but also as pickling. And cucumbers are also one of the top 5 vegetables in all of the gardens across the world. So let's look at the cucumbers. There are actually 2 different categories. We have what we call slicers and picklers. Our slicing cucumbers are pickling cucumbers. So the slicers are actually eaten fresh. They generally are about 4 to 12 inches long, and they have a relatively smooth skin on them. If they're a pickling type of a cucumber, those are the ones that are going to be usually processed. They're much shorter in their length, 1 to about 5 inches long. And they will also have a lot of bumps on the skin. And you can see here in this picture, there looks like there's a lot of bumps that are there. So if you're at the farmer's market and purchasing, or if you're growing your own cucumbers and you don't remember because you didn't tag them where you put which cucumbers and what portion of your garden, as they start to grow, just look at the length as well as is it a smooth skin or are there bumps on that skin? And that can help you to decipher what type of cucumber it might be. We also have other categories such as standard, restricted vines, and burpless. So the standards are actually going to be what we consider the traditional types of cucumbers, where they actually have a spread of the plant itself about anywhere between 4 to 6 feet, and they should be placed about 4 to 5 feet apart in a row. That gives them plenty of room to actually grow, to spread, to do what they need to do. The other ones, the restricted vines, they're more of a dwarf-like type of a plant. They're more bush-like, and they only need about 2 square feet in order for them to grow. So you have different kinds of growth patterns on that. So when you go to select your seeds, make sure you definitely read the seed packet so you know which type you've got, if it's a standard or if it's a restricted vine. And then, of course, we have the burpless kind, and those usually are going to be long and narrow. The other thing about the burpless is that they will have a very thin skin. So looking at how we actually produce them, or the growth of the cucumbers, they're very easy to grow. They do prefer the soil temperature to be at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit in order for them to grow well. And one of the things we have to remember is that a cucumber is a warm season crop. And just like tomatoes, and a lot of times we want to put our vegetables out in the ground as soon as we can, which is fine. The cooler temperature in the soil will not hurt or harm the vegetable. All it's really going to do is have that vegetable, when it's a warm season crop, just sit there and not have a lot of growth because the temperature of the soil is a little bit too chilly. So sometimes it's okay to wait just a little bit longer in the spring, even though we really want to get them in. Sometimes just waiting a little bit longer will do fine. They love to have the full sun and very well drained and loamy soil, if at all possible. They are a heavy feeder, and they also need an adequate amount of water. Remember, they're 96% water. Mulching is going to be good because it's going to help retain that water and the moisture in the soil, as well as helping to prevent weeds, so you will have less competition there. The vast majority of the cucumbers are going to mature within 50 to 60 days. Some of the different insects that we have, especially the ones that are going to be of most prominence on this, is going to be the cucumber beetles. They can be either the striped ones or the spotted ones. Aphids can also be an issue, as well as the squash vine borer. And here you can see the larva of that squash vine borer, and you can also see the damage. Essentially, the adult will lay its egg on the stem. The larva will hatch from that egg. It will eat and tunnel within that stem. and then it will come out eventually from that stem itself. The best ways to control these insects are going to be hand picking, which can be pretty difficult with those cucumber beetles because they can move a little quickly at times. Floating row covers can help to prevent those insects from actually coming. And then, of course, we have our insecticides. So make sure you read the label because the label is the law when you're looking at using insecticides for any kind of control. So some of the diseases that are most prominent, you're going to have the bacteria wilt, and that's going to be vectored. So when we say vector, it means that there is an insect that is transmitting the disease from one plant to the other plant, because that disease is going to be on the inside of that plant. And usually it's the cucumber beetle that will do that. So you'll notice that the plants around here are all looking fine except for this one particular plant. If that occurs, then chances are you have bacteria wilt. The best way to check for that is to go ahead and cut a stem and then slowly pull that stem apart, and you can see the bacteria are actually streaming back and forth between those two pieces of that particular stem. Another type of disease is going to be the powdery mildew. And a good way to try to control that is to make sure that you've got plenty of space for air circulation around all of your plants. So be careful, especially if you're going after the standard cucumbers, that you definitely give them the space to grow. Eliminate weeds. Use drip irrigation if at all possible, and try to eliminate that overhead watering. And we can't do anything about Mother Nature, but we do the best that we can. And then you could also try to use some fungicides, but remember that fungicides don't kill the fungus. They actually help to keep the fungus in check and keeping it from spreading. If you do use fungicides, just make sure that you use them on a rotating basis so the fungus doesn't develop resistance to the fungicide that's being used.